Hello friends, and welcome to my today's lecture, that is the act-wise summary of the play The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Today we'll be talking about the Act 1. Friends, you must have listened to my earlier videos, and in my last videos I had given a short biographical note of Oscar Wilde, the playwright of this play, The Importance of Being Earnest. In my next two lectures, I will be discussing about the other remaining acts. Today we'll be doing Act 1. When we begin with the play, in the Act 1, we see that the play opens at the flat of Algernon Moncrief, the main character in Half Moon Street, London, in his flat, and Algernon is expecting the visit of Lady Bracknell, and there is a pleasant exchange of words between Algernon and his manservant Lane. He has asked Lane to prepare a salver, or rather a tray of cucumber sandwiches for Lady Bracknell, as she loves them madly. Very soon it is Jack Worthing, another major character, who enters, and when he finds Algernon, or Algie to call him, eating at about 5 in the evening, he feels greatly amused. Now this Jack Worthing who has entered, or who has come into Algie's house, is also known as Earnest, as he's called in the play, and he has been away in the country, which he calls his part of the Shropshire county, and Algie also tells him that Lady Bracknell, who is about to visit him in a short while from now, she would not approve of Jack being there in his house, because Jack flirts with Lady Bracknell's daughter Gwendolen, and Algie also reveals his viewpoint to Jack that Gwendolen would not like to marry Jack because, in quotes, as it has been said, that in the first place, girls do not marry the men they flirt with, unquote. And as has been depicted in the play, Gwendolen is the niece of Algernon, and he would not like Gwendolen to get married to Jack before the matter of Cicely is clear. Now the Cicely is another major character whom Algie loves, as we will come to know when we read through the play. And it has happened all because we see that Algernon has found a cigarette case in his house which belongs to Jack, and which he discovers that there is an inscription inside that cigarette case which reads, in quotes, "From little Cicely with her fondest love to her dear uncle Jack." Now the second point, the first point as I had already mentioned, and the second point was that if Jack is not Jack, is he earnest? But Jack, till the end, keeps on insisting that his name is Jack and not Ernest. And Algernon is quite assured, because he has seen Jack responding to the name of Ernest, and also that he has been going around introducing himself as Ernest, and even that the cards, visiting cards, or the name cards that Jack carries also has the name of Ernest Worthing on it. And he also shows Jack one of the cards which reads Mr. Ernest Worthing, Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And now it is Jack's turn to actually relocate, or rather redefine his identity as being actually Jack and not Ernest. And he also explains the issue of Sicily which algae has created, that to be cleared up before he is allowed rather to meet Gwendolen by algae. And he explains that there was one old Mr. Thomas Cardew who had adopted Jack, and it was Mr. Cardew who had made Jack the guardian of his granddaughter, Miss Cicely Cardew. And now it is Cicely who stays in Jack's house in the country, and with her governess, Miss Prism. Now, because of that, Jack has to pretend that he also has a younger brother called Ernest who lives in Albany. Now, things gradually come up to be cleared up, and many more things are revealed out from this. It is also known that, like Jack, Algernon has also created an imaginary character called Banbury, who has always been in extraordinary bad health, and because of his being ill most of the times, Algernon actually has to visit him to town. So whenever he wishes to go to town, he has the excuse of Banbury. Now Algernon shares an apartment, or he has an apartment with Aunt Augusta, with whom he is going to dine, and in the meanwhile Jack reveals his thought as to wanting to kill his second name, or the second character, Ernest. But the condition is that if Gwendolen readily accepts Jack, it is only then he will have to do away with Worthing, Ernest. And he also feels that the fate which is meted out to Ernest, the same fate is to be meted out to Banbury, the imaginary second character of Algernon Moncrief also. Now, with this, while the two, Algernon and Jack, are conversing, the two young ladies, Lady Bracknell and Miss Gwendolen, they arrive at Algernon's flat, and both of them, as soon as they enter, we find that Gwendolen and Jack, they sit down in a corner all by themselves, and Lady Bracknell, as soon as she enters the flat, she asks, or demands rather, algae of the cucumber sandwiches, which are her favorites. And Algernon thinks that those sandwiches have been prepared, as he had already ordered his manservant Lane to do so But Lane actually gives a lame excuse as to the cucumbers not being available in the market, and that there has been no character who could get them from anywhere. And since Algie is not interested in dining with Aunt, he also gives an excuse of Banbury being ill, and that he would have to go to the village to be with Banbury. And Algernon addresses Banbury as a dreadful invalid, calls him a dreadful invalid in quotes. Now, by this, Algernon is successful, or he succeeds in rather deceiving Aunt. But she wants him to arrange some music for her, and then they go into Algernon's music room, leaving Gwendolen and Jack alone in the room behind, and both of them converse among themselves, Jack and Gwendolen, and Jack expresses or that he admires Gwendolen because she's very beautiful, and that he loves her, but she also responds, but she comments in the way when she says it has always been her ideal, in quotes, always been her ideal to love someone with the name of Ernest. So we find that hearing this statement of Gwendolen, though Jack feels happy, but at the second thought, he feels quite uncomfortable because he sees that it is the name Ernest which inspires love in Gwendolen. And since he knows that he is actually not Ernest, his real name is Jack, so he feels bad, and he tries to convince her that Jack is no bad a name. But she gives many pleas and says that the name Ernest is like a divine name, and that it has its own music and it produces vibrations. Though Jack tries to convince Gwendolen that even the name Jack has its own music, but he fails to charm Gwendolen by his statements, and because of that, since he is unable to convince her, he decides to get Christianed at once. But this christening ceremony, or the christening part, has also to be done in a very behind the garb rather, or in a concealed manner. So he tries to cover up with his word plays. And then whatever they converse, whatever has been their conversation, Gwendolen and Jack's, we come to know that Gwendolen, whatever she might say, but she adores Jack, and there is no doubt about it. And when he has been trying, or rather he is proposing to Gwendolen, at the very same moment, Aunt, or rather Lady Bracknell, she enters in the room, and she very openly declares. Now this declaration is by Gwendolen. Gwendolen declares that she has been engaged to